our unique pleasure every Tuesday at 7:35 to have a sit down with the Arizona Benefits Specialist from Arcwood Consulting, and 1 week it's one and 1 week it's the other. And this week we got both gentlemen joining us in studio, Peter Rowe and Brandon Oliver from Arcwood Consulting. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
We are well. Good morning.
You got a weird angle going on with me today, Peter. I like it. We don't have to actually make eye contact. All right, so we talked about all kinds of stuff. Peter got real deep into a book, about 500 pages last week, and it was really interesting, and he made it make sense, which is good. A couple weeks ago, we talked a little bit about 401k. We're going to start today, Brandon, with 401k, and some people that are participants probably don't understand what type of 401k their company has, whether it's just a straight 401k. They may have heard the term safe harbor, but have absolutely no idea what that means. That means your money's protected 100%, right? No, wrong.
Wrong. Close, yeah, sure. I mean, obviously that's a good point. You know, in a 401k, your account balance and your investments are always actually yours. They're not owned by the company, they're held in trust for you, and your employer doesn't have access to any of those. So that's a good point. Like, a lot of people don't even know that. The word safe harbor actually comes into play when it comes to the testing protections the owner will get if they make employer contributions. So that's exactly what we're talking about today. We're going to talk a little bit about safe harbor contributions from employers. And then I'm going to talk about something called the QACA. We love our acronyms. The QACA stands for the Qualified Automatic Contribution Arrangement, and it's just another form of employer contribution safe harbor, but a third type that's actually seldom, not used as much, and a little bit more seldom. So first, like, what are self harbors, like you asked? So for 401k to achieve the quote-unquote safe harbor status, that means the owner has to make a contribution to the plan. So it's not just the employee making a contribution to the plan. The employer has to make, generally, the two main ones is one of two types. So first is a basic safe harbor 401k match. That's where the owner will provide a 100% match on the first 3% an employee will put in, and then a 50% match on the next 2% deferrals, up to 5%.
Sure.
So the employee ends up putting in 5%, the employer puts in 4%. This is the most common type.
And if the employee puts up 20%, the employer puts up 4%, right? It's capped kind of at that 4%. And one of the reasons, I want you to explain this to people, one of the reasons companies will do that, 401ks can get out of whack for the owner real easy if you don't have a safe harbor, because if only the highly compensated are putting in, it can blow up their contributions and can blow up the plan, right?
Exactly. For some employers, these employer contributions are well worth the cost because of, among other more altruistic reasons, right? They can help the plan automatically pass some of the annual testing a plan has to go through. So right. A 401k has to go through a non-discrimination test every year, making sure highly compensated individuals aren't getting more benefit from the plan than non-highly compensated people or owners. So having a safe harbor contribution helps them automatically pass these type of things. So that helps them avoid having to make large year-end contributions that might not be equitable to all the employees. And obviously a match on top of just wanting to do what's right for people, help people get more money for retirement and things like that. It can also be seen as part of an overall benefits package or compensation package, which is probably important in a really tight labor market.
Peter, maybe I'll ask you this question. Is there, and this might be a dumb question, but let's say a company out there just wants to we want to give back. Is there a limit to how much you can match in a safe harbor? Like, as far as, let's say they wanted to match up to 6%. Either of you can answer this, but is that too much?
Is that too much? No. And the reason I'm going to say is that not too much is because we're in a retirement savings crisis. I mean, everyone who's been on the radio or read a newspaper in the last year has probably realized and heard that from the media that we are in a retirement savings crisis. So anytime an employer can assist their employee participants in actually getting to a successful retirement, then we certainly encourage that. And we do a lot of stretch matches, is what we just kind of call them in the industry, where we actually like to have the match be attributed to a much higher employee contribution. So maybe we're contributing up to their 6% of deferrals or up to their 8% of deferrals, because what we find is just in the behavioral economics aspect of things is that people will contribute to the match. And so with the safe harbor, it is kind of built in a box with the IRS. But it does basically say is that if you contribute 5% of your pay, we're gonna give you 4%, and so that's generally where people are gonna stop contributing.
You're listening to the Arizona Benefits Specialists every Tuesday here on Money Radio's Business for Breakfast. Peter Rowe and Brandon Oliver from Arcwood Consulting, a local firm that helps in all kinds of, whether it's 401k, health benefits, pay, you guys do everything, HR. We're gonna talk about more of that in a moment. Brandon, let me ask you this. When you do a safe harbor, as an owner of the company, and you're doing these different matches and all this, is there vesting now that can be put in, or do you lose some of those capabilities where, I don't wanna call it the golden handcuff, but sometimes there's a 4 or 5 year pattern where people can get all the contributions the employer made?
So I'm getting the impression both of you researched what we were talking about before I got here today. So the QACA, what I wanted to talk about this morning, actually has a little bit of what Peter was just talking about and a little bit of what you were just talking about. So the QACA has what could be considered a stretch match, right? The match goes up to 6%. And the QACA, unlike any of its brothers or cousins, all the other safe harbor options actually has a vesting period attached to it. So the QACA, it's just a newer type of safe harbor 401k plan. Unlike its brothers, it requires that the plan has an automatic enrollment feature. That means the plan has to have a feature where if people don't decide to join the 401k themselves, at a predetermined date, they are automatically enrolled into the plan. Now, the QACA match is kind of close to the other ones, but it's a little bit different. So the matching contribution is 100% of the first 1%, and then 50% match up between 1% and 6%. So right, we're going a little bit farther, and for that, the employer actually only puts in 3.5%.
So a little bit of savings.
Yeah, it works down on, when you kind of break down the math, if you have an employer that's already contributing or already has the automatic enrollment provisions into a plan, and they're already doing a safe harbor, just by making a change to this QACA type of a match, it's about a 12.5% savings on employer contributions, and you don't lose any of the safe harbor provisions. And what Brandon's about to allude to is that you also now have a 2-year cliff vesting, which means if you have a higher turnover inside your firm, and somebody's leaving after a year, then you have the opportunity to recoup some of their contributions that you've made into their account on their behalf.
I'm sure you guys run into this, and you work with tons of 401ks all over the United States, but in Arizona, these owners are ready to set one up maybe, and then everything sounds great, and then like, oh, by the way, no vesting. So now they're like, well, I don't like that. So this QACA kind of handles all sides a little bit, right?
Yeah. It's instead of having to do a custom match, which wouldn't get you out of all the testing and
Right.
everything like that, you get a vesting schedule. On top of that, you get the safe harbor to pass the main test. And one other interesting thing, if we're going time, there's also some safe harbors that aren't a match. They're just a discretionary contribution, right? So instead of saying, well, if you put in whatever 3.5 employee or 6% employee, I'll give you 3.5, or if you put in 5, I'll give you 4. We're just going to put in 3% into your 401k every year, and that's called a non-discretionary contribution. And those safe harbors will actually let you pass other tests and allow you to cross-test against like profit sharing plans. So you brought up earlier, could I put in more if I wanted to?
Right.
That's usually accomplished through profit sharing, and by using a discretionary contribution, you get both buckets at the same time. So let's say we put in 3% for all the employees in this discretionary contribution. All of a sudden, we can now put in 9% without having to put another dollar in for the key group if we'd like to.
For a lot of business owners that maybe have a 401k listening, this could be confusing, and that's okay because it's only a 10-minute segment. So I always tell people, if you have questions about your 401k, your personal 401k that you're working with right now, or if you're a participant and you'd like to tell your boss, hey, do you know what we got going on? It might be a good time to evaluate your plan, get a look, a health check, if you will, and the guys over at Arcwood Consulting will do that. Go to Arcwood, Arcwood.com for more information. We'll get you more on that in a moment. Peter, I do want to ask you about the benefits thing. When you talk about health benefits, I feel like right now is when we start getting our health benefits for next year. Am I onto something?
You are spot on.
Okay.
We are running fast as we can right into the season.
So what is the deadline, or is there a hard deadline, or when do usually most plans renew, or at least take a look at their plan and see if there's something better out there?
Our larger employers are generally renewing on a January 1st, and then sometime July 1st, is depending upon if they're running on a calendar or fiscal year for their tax basis. But then for the small groups, really what healthcare reform has done is it's kind of converted everybody over to a December 1st effective date. So we're getting all those renewals effectively right now as advisors, and then digesting what we have to kind of crunch through in the next, 60 to 90 days.
All right, if an HR person is doing that right now, what would be your pitch to them? Like, hey, let me look at it and see if, maybe we can better it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of new plan designs that are coming out. Smaller employers, what we talked about last week, we actually got a few phone calls about the individual coverage HRAs, which they can have some applicability for some of the smaller groups. But really just the designs that are being offered out there now from a level funding standpoint, there's a lot of opportunity that we can potentially go through an underwriting process, and if there are healthy groups, they're most likely going to get a reduction in premiums. Whereas in the fully insured market right now, everything is just you fog a mirror, you sign, and you're on. And in my opinion, it kind of creates a little bit of a subsidy from the healthy groups to the non-healthy groups, and let's just explore that and see if there's opportunities.
Was it Ken that called? He likes to crank call our guests sometimes.
I think it was actually.
I think it was. Okay,
So,
good.
It was a
Brandon,
good disguise though.
the Arizona Benefits Specialist, we have time for one more thing, and that is to let everyone know all the different ways to reach out to you over there at Arcwood Consulting. So Brandon Oliver, please give us those ways.
So the two easiest ways to reach anyone at our firm, be it for HR services, 401k, or benefits, is just to call our main line, right? And that's 602-726-6280, and they'll get directed to whatever you're calling about that day. If you want to explore the QACA to see if you can save 20% on your current safe harbor match, or if you want another quote on your renewals, right, we'll get you to the right people there. Our main email line is just info@arcwood.com, and that's ARCWOOD.
Or go to the website, arcwood.com, Arcwood Consulting, and of course, this is our weekly feature. We're having a lot of fun because we're educating people as we do this every Tuesday, and that was really the idea of creating this segment. Peter Rowe and Brandon Oliver from Arcwood Consulting. Good stuff this week, guys. I'll see you next Tuesday, all right?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks,
There you
guys.
go. That is our Arizona Benefits